And these practices with hypnosis allow you to get just kind of a little bit more instinctual, intuitive, more self-aware. And this is all about what we're doing with Remember You, is just becoming more self-aware, remembering who you are in the most foundational level, which is a spirit. And we signed up for this game to find out, to remember, where we came from and who we truly are in the most powerful sense. So to tap into these things through subconscious was really powerful. You take those experiences and they carry on to the rest of your days ongoing from that point on.
Well, welcome back to the Remember You podcast, the place where we peel back the layers, reclaim the parts of ourselves we've abandoned, and remember who we really are beneath all the noise. And I'm so glad that you're here. Whether it's your first time tuning in or your 10th, you've made it back. Welcome home. Before we begin, let's take a moment of stillness, just one breath, taking just a moment to feel your body, letting it all go. And now that we're all here, let's begin. Well, so for today's episode, we're so excited because we're kicking off a very spiritual episode and going deep on the concept of past life regressions. Mm-hmm. And there's a variety of ways to go about this, but the way that I know and recently experienced was through hypnosis. So of course, I love that the most. And I know, Justin, you are quite well-versed in this realm as well. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, kind of give you a history of how I've come to be. I grew up with this. My mom is an intuitive medium. My dad is a mystic in his own right. And we've always had kind of an alternative way of going about spirituality and religion and all these other things. And so I grew up with it to the point where when I was younger, I was like, my parents are crazy. They're not like anybody else that I've grown up with. To then maybe there's some validity behind it because I've seen the success that they gained from it and the inner peace and the growth that they were doing. And my mom is an intuitive medium. So I would hear the stories of her helping others, whether it be past life regressions, connecting with loved ones, or finding their lost dog or something like that, like just some crazy stories. And so as time went on, I started really getting interested in it myself more and more, because the pendulum kind of swung from one side where if science can't prove it, I don't believe it, to then it swung to not so much the extreme that science doesn't matter, but that there's much more to this than what science can explain. And so that has brought me to where I am today. And the past life regression was always something interesting to me as it relates to more of a way that I relate to how to unfold and reveal things. And that was through hypnosis. And I went through, I forgot how I got introduced to it, but I was interested in Dolores Cannon and her studies and her readings. And she developed this technique called quantum healing hypnosis technique, QHHT.
Wait, can I pause you right there really quick?
Sure.
So can you give our listeners a little rundown on who Dolores is and like what she was so famous for?
Yeah. So Dolores is kind of one of the OGs, one of the originators in the recent spirituality and esoteric type of practices. And what that means is like the inner work and channeling entities and connecting with spirit. And what she has done has been able to tap into past lives that would explain history from a different perspective. She's channeled and wrote books on Nostradamus. She was able to channel Nostradamus and kind of decode his premonitions and kind of set him straight from the perspective of channeling him, kind of hearing it straight from the mouth of him, to people who have walked with Jesus, to aliens, to all sorts of things. And they kind of just bring up universal truths that we know deep down inside. You know, whether it's preaching from the Bible or preaching from just somebody who's lived life. There's kind of these universal truths that you hear and know from the heart. You just feel it. And so she was one of those who spoke to me in that way. And so she's done a lot of work with hypnosis, using hypnosis for past life regression to help people heal trauma. And her philosophy or her approach is that these traumas that we experience in life and that we have kind of a cycle of repeat lessons until we finally get those lessons, they finally release themselves from us, and that we can all account to things that we've done in our life over and over and over and over again. And then we finally wake up to the lesson and how we're responsible for it. And then we no longer have to go through that trauma or that cycle anymore. Right. And whether it's in health, finance, business, relationships, or anything in life. And what she is tapping into is a deeper layer where it's revolving around trauma from previous lives. So this could be a life from World War II all the way back to before Jesus or during the Salem witch trials. There's all sorts of crazy stories that she has shared and has written books on. And it makes you look at things from a much wider perspective. And I would call her a mystic of sorts. I would call her a spiritual leader, somebody who has paved the way for many others, including myself, to move forward and explore things beyond what school has taught us and what conventional science has taught us, and to think outside the box and look out beyond what the physical world provides and look into the spiritual world.
Maybe Hope, if you can break it down for the listeners on a little bit of first, like if they've never heard of past life regression, like give it, if I'm a 10-year-old, what does it mean? And even if I don't believe in that kind of stuff, why should they listen to us today?
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think the first reason that comes to mind is that you're going to get a very dualistic approach to this conversation, because I would actually consider Justin almost way more of an expert, and I just went through my first experience. So I can speak to those people who are just like, what the heck are you talking about? And then Justin can take us deeper into like the origins and like history, because there's a million routes to this. It's not like a new concept. And Dolores Cannon is one of the first trailblazers. I think she actually passed in 2014. So it's been a while, but to really bring this work to mainstream media, or attempt to, and just like create conversation around it. But essentially for me, what past life regression is using hypnosis to get you in a deep, relaxed state, of course, and then accessing your subconscious mind and your subconscious memory to see if you are able to have access to memories from past lives. And there's a variety of ways of going about it, but the session that I did was actually at a conference called Hypno Thoughts Live. It was in Vegas. Don't recommend Vegas in the middle of July, but the conference was fantastic. And one of my favorite sessions I went to was by Randy Light, who's also local to Chicago. She's in, I think, the Ogden Dunes. It's like an hour away. But I just saw that it was a past life regression hypnosis session. Like I didn't know, like I thought she was going to talk about like, how to teach this or how to start putting it into your practice, but it actually was like a live demo. So I didn't even know that this was going to be, but of course that's how it's supposed to be, right? Yeah. It's like you stumble upon these things, and ended up being incredibly transformative. So I walk into the session, she's amazing. She's like, giving everyone a rundown, past life regression, kind of what I just said and how it works. And that the session that we'd be doing today, we're actually going to put a spin on it and have the intention of going back to a past life that you had different skills and gifts, and bringing those back to this life and reactivating those.
Okay.
And so, again, I would consider myself a mystic as much as a critic in a lot of these things. And so I really went in with an open mind, but with no expectations at all, because again, there were like 30 people in the room. Right. So I had never experienced group hypnosis, let alone a past life regression. So but I was like, let's do it. So of course,
and I have to just pause for 1 second. It's like, when you think about this, the critic in me is like, this is really weird. Are you making things up? Because in our mind, we like to frame things. And so like, if right away you're going in to do this past life, you're going to all of a sudden give it this frame and it's going to fit within your frame. It's a lot of like what people say about astrology and things like that, right?
Tarot cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Love all of them. Don't care what anyone says, but totally agree.
You know what I'm saying though?
I would say one of the best things, especially my friends who are more inclined to like spiritual concepts and like things to talk about, they would say that I have this great ability to have a foot in both worlds.
Yeah.
So like, know that as I'm telling you this, I think this shit's kind of crazy, but I'm like, let's see what happens with it.
But and when you were in it though, it felt real, right?
Oh, when I was in it, I don't think it's crazy anymore.
Okay.
I was just saying, like, walking into it, I was very much so a skeptic. And not in the way that, like, I'm looking for something to go wrong. I was totally open-minded. My energy was open. I was like, let's see what happens. But I had zero expectations.
Which is the key, right? Because
Totally.
if you have closed energy, you're like, this is stupid, then just walk out because you're not going to have the experience anyways because you're closing down whatever is meant to be
and
there.
to me, it was just like, what, you know, I don't know. It was just like kind of like what I had to lose. I'm also being led by this expert, you know, and there's like support people around. And it was just like a really good energy and group of people. So I was like, let's do this. So she starts the group session. And if you know anything about, or if you've been to a hypnosis session as a client, it starts off with a lot of muscle relaxation because it's really important to get your body and like your somatic responses to like fully let go.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why that is so helpful is that your conscious mind is like obsessing over all these things and is so distracted. So we get the body relaxed first, then we can give the conscious mind, you know, something else to do with other words and different things we're saying, and then ultimately getting into that subconscious portion of it where you actually are able to like bypass the conscious mind or critical factor with like subconscious reprogramming. So I know all of these things.
Right.
I'm a hypnotist.
Yep.
So I'm like, oh, she's doing the things. Like, here she goes. But it was like, it was amazing. It all totally worked. I was immediately relaxed. My head started bobbing at one point because I was just like, so like in that space.
Yeah.
And she asked us to go, you know, to this past life. And it was crystal clear to me. Immediately I was in like an ancient, like Egyptian times.
So, okay, wait.
Yeah.
So she relaxed you. She does the muscle relaxation techniques.
Yep.
And
all that is, everyone, if you're listening, it's just focusing on, it's using words. It's not like she was like touching me or anything. Like it's, you know, saying, okay, like let's focus, you know, on relaxing like the top of your scalp. Now relaxing all the muscles in your forehead and your eyelids. Notice your eyelids getting heavier. And then your chin and your jaw and like all these things. And it gives your mind something to do while you're getting into that state of relaxation. And then that's when like the part after that is like most effective.
And so you're in a room with 30 people going through this.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing the same thing as you.
Eyes closed.
All right. Eyes closed.
Yep.
All right. And so then what happens?
I will also say that she did spray the room with like this sage spray before we came in. And I was like, oh, I love that. It's like, added to the experience.
And keeps the boundaries.
I was just like, this is great. Where are we going? But then after that, I immediately just saw, it was like seeing a movie in my head. That's all it was. And it was, you know, seeing this past life memory, which was me in ancient Egyptian times. I was in some type of chamber or like, you know, closed space with what seemed to be like a family. So it was me, like a mom figure, a dad figure, and a little brother. And we all looked like we were dressed in royalty. The name Goddess of Ra kept like coming up in my mind. I didn't know what that meant. And then I saw myself, it's a little dark, but I saw myself actually have to sacrifice my heart. And so they were saying, so it was like I didn't experience the pain of going through that. It was like I watched it as a memory from a different perspective. And I was like, they kept saying, we have to do this to protect our lineage. Like, you know, you're the goddess of Ra. We have to take your heart, you know, this and that. And it was really like, and then they took my heart from my body and put it into the center of this table where there was like a tube that went like down into like disappeared into something. And they took my heart and it disappeared. And then I saw myself experiencing this. Like I was like, above the table. Like I was like over, it was like my spirit was seeing it. And then everyone was so distressed. Like the little brother like ran into the room, was like crying. And the dad was like, I hope her spirit just like leaves. I'm so sorry we had to do this. And it was just like really unusual. And then I like zoomed out, but as I watched it, it all felt, it wasn't traumatizing for some reason. It just was like that happened.
Yeah.
Like there was something so grounded about seeing it. And also my mind went there instantly. And for the record, I'm into lots of different, hobbies, things, topics, esoteric things, but I have not touched anything with ancient, like Egyptian times. So for that to come to me, I thought was super interesting. Because my first thought, of course, afterwards is like a logical mind. If someone was a history buff and super into all those topics, and then they go into a past life regression, you're like, oh, I'm from ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
That may be okay. Like your mind's looking for something. But I really have never looked up anything to do with this. And so it was really powerful. It was something. And then I found out, I have my notes out here. And then it looks like Justin is back in.
Keep
So
going, though.
I'll stop rattling. You can interject at any time. So the big takeaways were that something was to do with like being the goddess of Ra. And Ra is the god, like the sun god. It's like a really huge.
Did you look that up later?
Yes.
Okay.
I did like, I went down some rabbit holes. Because I was like, all this doesn't make sense to me. So it's goddess of Ra. There was a heart sacrifice. And it was like the mom was doing it to like, was kind of the one who was like, we have to do this. And then I hear on my notes they're like so messy. It was like cut beyond the table. Let's see. And then the gifts that I took back that I like, again, in this hypnotic state, it's all coming to me, were time travel.
Okay.
Instantaneous healing. And that the purpose of my partner, Jordan, my boyfriend, is that his energy, like his presence in my life is meant to really continue helping cleanse all of the energy that I bring in and all the things I do with my hypnosis work. And like any energy healing work or whatever, because that's what I do for my day-to-day here.
Yep.
And he, if you know him, we're like the epitome of yin and yang. Like he is super grounded, like very reserved, very wise, just like soft-spoken. And I would say I'm kind of the opposite in a lot of ways. But like, it just kind of was interesting. I was like, I wonder why that came to me. Didn't mean it make anything of it. Again, I'm just writing down these notes. But yeah, so that was kind of the main experience.
So then after you came out of it and you're like, wow, that was intense.
Yeah.
What did you find out about that later after going down and researching everything?
That was the first part of the session.
Okay.
And then she had us from that. She was guiding us back. So after that scene like ended, it was like I was kind of like up in the ethers. And then I saw myself actually underwater.
Okay.
And so it was like I was like some like water person and I was like swimming. And then I saw this big like a chest underwater has like a big, like a steel like wheel to turn open. Mm-hmm. And it was like, that's what I was trying to open, but I couldn't get it open. And so I was like, okay, that's probably like another past life that's like trying to
come through,
connect with me. But for some reason, it's probably good reasons, I guess, I couldn't open it. And so then at that point, she started guiding us to the second like part of this session where it was actually going into your mother's womb. So coming back to yourself and now coming back to in this lifetime, going back to like your mother's womb. And at this point, I'm just like, what is even happening? Like, all this crazy I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And it was like, connect with that version of yourself when you were there. And it was like, again, instantaneous. I saw myself like stressed out because my mom, love you, mother, if you're listening. She worked in corporate setting and super hardworking. Yeah. And worked all the way up to basically her water breaking and like she didn't like take time off. Like she would jokingly tell
That's
people.
So interesting because I'm doing a second certification for hypnobirthing. Yeah. And we're talking about how many mothers don't connect with the baby. And so the baby is the baby's at a different energy level and the mother's not taking the time. And so a lot of the babies are going through trauma in the womb just because they're not even connected to the mother.
Absolutely.
So that like actually...
that's why I was so excited to share this part with you, knowing that you're going through the certification. So in the womb, I saw myself and I was like this little baby and I was like seeing myself like stressed out and like freaked out and being like, why is there so much going on? Like, slow down. Like, I'm scared, you know, because my mom's like 100 miles an hour. Like, she used to jokingly say that she was so like pregnant at the office, like that people would like make sure to get out of her way when she was walking down the hall. Cause they're like, your water's going to break like any minute. Like, she really worked all the way up in this super male dominated industry, you know, very intense setting. And so it just like was so interesting. And I started crying, like actually like during the hypnosis session, I started crying because it was just like, it made so much sense. And Michelle and I were talking before the show today that one of my big realizations this year is about my addiction to busyness.
Yeah.
And my addiction to doing and being at all these different things. And like that you know, even my boyfriend Jordan will tell me, he's like, you know, like yesterday, I'm like, God, I wasn't productive. He's like, why do you have to be productive every single day? Like, do you realize rest is productive?
Yeah.
And it's like, why am I like that?
No, we don't
you know, but it's
realize
like,
that.
yes, there's this societal thing, but then it just made me think to this experience where it's like, you know, that can impact you. It's technically trauma, you know, like obviously, you know, I don't blame my mom for that, like, you know, whatever, but it provided me relief to say like, oh, that's actually not who I am. And maybe that hecticness that was around me while I was like, you know, growing in her stomach, maybe there was something there with that.
Absolutely.
That's what I got from the session. I was going there. I was like, oh, that's not my personality. That was like imprinted onto me. So I don't have to be that anymore.
Right.
Amazing.
That's cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so then after that, you know, she brought us back and I was just like sitting in the person next to me, like was like, hey, are you okay? Because I was just like, I was like crying and like, you know, there a ton of other people are having an experience. And I was just like, yeah, like I've just never done that before. And I had like such a vivid experience. And she was just, you know, saying how like common it was or whatever. So, yeah, I feel like I've been talking a lot though.
No,
so let's
that's
unpack
so cool.
it.
Yes,
Justin,
please.
our sensei, our leader.
So hold on, wait. We'll come back to you because I want to know what your research said about it. And then Justin, if you want to share your experience when you went through.
Or even like, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
Everything you described was very similar.
Okay.
I've gone through several hypnosis sessions myself.
And for the record, we did not talk about this before.
No, this is all
today.
fresh. Yeah, we
So
haven't
good.
touched base on this. So am I coming through clear?
Yeah, you're great.
Very good. So everything you described, like it's like a first person movie. Like you're going through it and experiencing it as if you're that person and everything you described right there. It's like I'll share my story soon and you'll I'm sure relate to it as well in many ways. But the emotions that come out of it are so real, and the dots that you connect afterwards. And I mean, you're just fresh out of it. I'm still connecting dots, and it was 6 months, 8 months ago, that are just eye opening and such a huge impact on your life that, you know, these things that you just tied the connection between addicted to work and coming out of a womb that was from the energy of somebody who was addicted to work. I mean, it just like, it makes sense. And then that understanding allows you to go, oh, this isn't me. This is just the cards you were dealt and you found out another way to play these cards.
And also too, I think before we go too far past that, what happens, you know, in the womb or whatever, like, it's not that I thought like, you know, I'm very lucky to have a mom that was so hardworking and so independent. Like there's so much value that I take.
You wouldn't take anything back
from that. I wouldn't change a thing, but I think this underlying aspect of myself that didn't feel authentic, which is the exhaustive busyness. Like I, in my true nature and form, am more of an artist.
Yeah.
But I've been fitting myself into this box of business lady, or, you know, which, you know, I like it too, but I'm just saying it's not my first most authentic thing. So I don't think it always needs to be looked at as like, I was so traumatized, but it's like, oh, well, like that may have impacted me in this way and now I can release it. if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. And we go through this life, right, knowing that we're going to take certain traumas on and we forget that. So this helped you remember.
I would never have sat and thought about that. Because also my mom is like 5 feet tall and I like love her to death. And like, I just wouldn't even think that.
Yeah.
There's other things she's done in her waking life. I'm like, that traumatized me. Like I wouldn't have thought about the womb, you know?
But like in our lives, it's like we have to realize it's about taking time to take care of ourselves and realize when we should take the opportunity to take care of ourselves.
Well, and these learnings are quantum leaps. Now that's off of me. And I'm like, oh, I can move different.
Yeah.
Like I don't need it. And that's like why this work, especially with hypnosis, wellness, all of these different things we're talking about, it's slowing down so that you can make these intentional, huge jumps and like, stop scrambling and wasting your energies, like going out into a million directions, but like getting aligned,
right?
Knowing who you are and then making moves. And it's like such a different effect.
And it's a journey forever.
Yeah.
So it's like you're going to do these things and you're going to learn more and more and more. And then you just kind of start to stack on top of it. And then it's like, okay, oops, one fell off because you forgot about it. And you're reliving that story that Justin was talking about, how you kind of until you learn it.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, hold on, I'm back. It's about quickly being able to say, ooh, I'm doing that. I'm reliving that. And then redirecting your energy, realigning it and coming back.
Well, and the other thought to add to that, so perfectly said, is that looking at your life and this is something I've already believed, but this experience kind of like expanded this idea, is looking at yourself as an organic being. Mm-hmm. Like what's true for me right now at 33 years old probably isn't going to be true for me when I'm 43. Yeah. Or there's certain things, but in this point in time, this part of my development, where my soul is, it's like these experiences mean yes. So it's like allowing yourself the space to grow and evolve and like, but knowing how to come back and like check in with yourself, I think is the skill that you can always just like focus on developing that. If that makes sense.
Yes.
But anyways, carry on, Justin.
No, I think just to wrap it up with an important point that Michelle said and that you all said in your own way is taking the time to do this. You being open-minded, the mind is like a parachute. It only works if it's open. And to go into these situations, just see what happens. And you are able to tie something that was a quantum leap. And the more open you are to these modalities, I find you're able to make these quantum leaps and unravel something that you couldn't think through. You couldn't put yourself through in any order and many other ways to experience it. I think hypnosis is a unique modality and in the way that it allows you to experience it.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to learn or study the thing. The practitioner does that for you. All you have to do is surrender and release and just see what comes and don't judge it. Don't try to change it. And that's a skill for when you're consciously aware.
Yeah.
Like the hypnosis session is going to carry into the rest of your life where you can be in a hypnotized state, which is just a singular focused state, and be able to pay attention to the signs that life is giving you and take them as if you were in a hypnotic state as you were. So you start to become much more aware of the things around you and the messages that aren't so deliberate and clear to say, jump or do the thing or release this.
And I think, and I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I think for the listeners who are listening saying, oh my gosh, this is against my religion, or, you're kind of already closing down, but maybe you're just you want to get a little bit more curious about stuff like this. And to open your mind up is to just ask yourself some simple questions of, say you have a child or a spouse, what is love? Do you love that person? Who told you to love that person? It's something that you made up, yes or no, right?
Yep.
What is it? So open your mind. If you can make up love, you can open your mind and start to think of different beliefs and then let those things come to you.
And even to add to that as well, because I had the same thought. It's like, okay, we're all of us are like, this is what we're interested in, believe in. But it's like, there was a point in time when I looked at this and was like, probably not for me.
Right.
Again, that was like over 10 years ago. But before getting into it, it's like, you have all these limiting beliefs of, religion or whatever else. But if you can go into it, let's say none of this is real. Like none of it was real. What my mind just showed me, even if it's real or not, incredibly healing.
Yes.
I jumped like many
That's
things.
how you know it's truth.
And so to me though, I don't care if it's real or not, because what the effect on it for me, which I do believe it's real, by the way, but I'm just saying, like, if you go into it, play with
your body knows and your mind knows, and the universe, God, whatever you want to say, knows what we need to be, what we need to heal ourselves and become more of one. And that's why we're even really doing this podcast, right? To realize that everyone in this room, everybody listening, we're all cut from the same thing.
Yes.
And so we all want to heal. There's all different ways to do it. And as you heal, I'm healing because I'm part of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
well put.
I got goosebumps.
I love that. I so totally believe that. And that's why sharing these stories, like, and Michelle, you and I, before we were talking,
I know.
We're literally like saying the same exact thing. This is what's going on in my life. My schedule's so filled up, but it's like, why am I doing this? It's like, we're not even living the same life. We don't even talk every day. And it's like the same stuff happening.
Yeah.
So going through, sharing these stories and sharing these breakthroughs is collective healing. Because we all want love. We all want the same things, essentially, fundamentals.
We all want to relax.
Yes.
And fundamentally,
I just wanna chill.
we are all love.
Yes.
We've lost ourselves in this chaotic world that we built. And so,
that keeps us busy.
yes.
Yes.
And so that's where, this is not about AI, but I do believe that a lot of people are really worried and fearful of AI and some of the stuff that's coming out. If we as humans band together and realize that this is a tool that can help us calm ourselves down, become, we just lost Justin.
He'll jump back on.
He doesn't want to talk about AI.
He's like, I love AI.
It's not
damn
AI.
it.
He needs to get into his hypnosis session.
That's hilarious.
But
It's like, don't you talk to me about crypto.
But the thing is if we can use it to be a tool to help us be more creative, calm our nervous, get more time, and be better and bring more love into this world, it is going to be amazing gift that we've created for ourselves.
Right.
It's like anything. We need to stop fearing and have some faith in humanity, in my opinion. But put some guidelines. Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
Admit him.
Put some guidelines around it. All right. So tell us about your journey.
Yes.
Okay. So did you hear about, did you hear about my journey with my mom and all those things?
Yes.
Okay. So we got that. Going into the quantum, the QHHT, the Dolores Cannon technique, it was just interesting to me because as you experienced with Hope, as she was talking about all that, I was just really interested. I heard stories of this and I'm like, I'd be interested in going into this myself. I was particularly interested in the healing aspect of the hypnosis. So going into past life traumas and tapping into subconscious and realizing why we have physical ailments or disease and we're holding on to it from a spiritual level. And so there was stories of her helping people not only with weight loss and quit smoking and those standard type of things that hypnosis has been found to help or cure or reverse, but also people with severe diseases.
And we're talking about Dolores, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Dolores Cannon. And, cancers or...
I was like, I haven't done this yet. But I was like, I don't know who you're talking to.
Yes. So now that we got it clear.
Yeah.
But people who had metal plates in their bones that after they did a session found that the metal dissolved. As crazy as that sounds, there's just... I've heard and seen unique anomalies like this, and I was interested. This made sense to me that I wanted to dig into this. So I went through the level 1 practitioner course, and through that, I was interested in getting this done myself. And so I reached out to a level 3 practitioner out in Kansas City, and I went out to go see her. And the journey through this was a little different than Hope's in that it was like I was not at a conference, but like literally going to an office, like somebody would go to Christina or Hope's office for a hypnosis session. There's a process involved. And the process involved me having a notebook and writing down questions. And so the process with this QHHT is the expectation is to go through past lives, but then at the end, you get in contact with subconscious, or what many would call God. Mm-hmm. And the subconscious is the unification, the field, the radio station where we're all connected, right? And you're able to just get in touch with that level of communication. So I was really interested in it. So, and what you can do is you can ask it questions and you get questions back. So you can ask all sorts of things.
So cool.
And so I was asking about relationship questions. I was asking about business questions. I was asking about, recent experiences that I had and what do they mean, physical ailments that I was going through, which we'll get into all that stuff. And then studies that I was digging into with Dolores Cannon and Nostradamus. And this was the interesting experience that I went through in this process of preparing for the session. Was as I asked the questions, there was answers that came through as I asked those questions. So I didn't even need to ask all these questions when I got to the hypnosis session. A lot of these were just answered through me asking and receiving the answer. So it's a very good practice period for anybody out there to get a notebook and just write questions to your life and whatever's going on. Write those questions down and let them come. You'll download the information, right? We're always tapped into this stuff. Hypnosis just gives you permission to be able to access this in a way that you're not distracted around anything. It's a moment where you can focus solely on yourself and go inwardly and be guided by somebody you trust. So when I got down to Kansas City and I sat down with this practitioner, we ended up talking for like 3 hours beforehand. And it was like a therapy session all in all. She got my history, my life history, from start to finish as a child to where I am now. And she had some intuitive psychic abilities too. And she was able to like tap into that and was really interested in my technique with strength coaching and mindfulness. And we expanded upon that. But then after we sat for 3 hours, then it was time for the hypnosis session. So this was an all-day thing.
But the hypnosis was already
My God.
begun.
Yeah,
That's actually what it is.
So
you were already 3 hours in.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely trust this person. I'm open-hearted and open-minded. I was already bought in. So I approached it from more of like, having studied this, having researched it for some time, I was already bought into it. So I was already open-minded to it. But you could also have a bias towards, are you making these things up as you go through it? And we'll get into this. But after the 3 hours of sitting down and breaking down the questions and just explaining my life, then I laid down in a couch and she went through the whole sequence. And it's a quick sequence that basically just kind of gets you to start visualizing. Like, can you imagine a red bird? Can you imagine green trees with the leaves fluttering? And so it gets you into that visual state. And then from there, she takes you back on a cloud, back through time and space. And my eyes closed, but I'm awake.
Yeah.
I'm definitely in a altered state where I'm not thinking about anything else other than what she's cueing me through. And as she brought me down from the cloud, this is where you go into your first past life. And I didn't see anything. I just saw darkness and I felt pressure. And it felt very much like what Hope was describing was underwater. And I felt underwater. I just felt the pressure. I was like in an abyss. And the way I was speaking, I could hear myself speak, but it wasn't like I was thinking of words to speak. I was just viewing the monitor or the screen, but also just being kind of first person in this movie and feeling it. And they call it the subnamulistic state, SUBNAM, namulistic state, where you embody the being or the life that you're channeling. Right. So you experience these things. And as I started to just kind of sit there and she was cueing me, asking me, where was I said, I felt like I was in water. And then she's like, do you see the bottom or can you make up anything? And I just kind of was patient with it. And it took about what felt like 30 seconds, maybe a little longer, to finally start to see something. And as I looked down, I just started seeing scales and I saw claws on my hands. And there were gray and black scales and they looked like a lizard. And I'm like, okay. And I'm describing this. And I'm describing it in a different tone. It was very like robotic. It wasn't how I'm speaking to you right now. It was
Because you were in that hypnotic state.
very, yes.
So
And I felt my eyes like rapid eye movement.
Yes.
Like I was aware, I was hearing myself, but I wasn't like knocked out cold.
Totally. That's exactly how I felt.
Similar?
Yeah. Very, very similar.
So as she accused me, she's like, look down at your feet. Can you see anything? And I saw claws again, but it looked like raptor claws, like a big claw in the middle. The big toe was like a big claw. And then all of a sudden it just like got heavy and dropped into this reality where I was in this forest. It looked like a Jurassic forest. And it was like in motion. I was running with this pack of other dinosaurs that were just like me. And I perceived them now as to be like velociraptors.
That's so interesting.
And we were running like a pack. It felt like we were a pack of wolves, very synchronized. And we were on a hunt. I knew we were after something. And I was describing this as she was asking questions. Where are you going? What are you doing? And I'm describing this more fluently now. But as we were going through it, like I just described that we didn't need to talk. We could speak telepathically. Like I knew where they were all at and where I was at and where we were going to go. And furthermore, we felt completely connected to the jungle, like the plants and everything around us. The environment was completely one. It felt instinctual. It was like just very no thought whatsoever. This is just what it is. And even connected to the prey that we were chasing. So it wasn't like an aggressive, like anger or hatred going after this prey. It was just like life eats life. This is just part of the process. And I remember saying that like we communicated through a clicking, and I felt like a bone in my brain was clicking like that.
Wow.
I don't know if that's anatomically sound and if they've proven that with lizards or whatever, or dinosaurs, but there was like this internal click that I could feel. And that's how we were communicating through sound or sonar.
Like vibration.
Yeah. Yes. And we were on the move and coordinated like African dogs. If you've ever viewed them from like above, they coordinate and flank the prey. And it was all a coordinated event, but we were just without communication, knowing where to go and how to do it. I remember laying down, and as I was describing what was going on in this chase or in this hunt, all of a sudden, just involuntarily, I was just going through describing, and maybe I paused for a second, but then I just out of the blue, this huge reaction occurred where I was just like this huge breath in through my nose. It came all of a sudden, and she asked me, "What are you smelling?" And I said, "Pheromones." And so I was taking in chemicals and like my senses were interpreting all the information just as not like, what is this? This is that. It was just like information go. And it was just completely input, output. And when you look at animals, I see them operating that way. Like my dad was describing when he used to hunt jackrabbits in Texas and how he would aim for them and they would have holes in their ears from bullets skimming past them. And he's like, I swear to God, these rabbits knew how to dodge bullets. Like they just knew when to duck their head when a bullet was coming down through them, and they knew how to duck. And he experienced that. And it's like we've all been there in a performance, right? Where you don't think, you just react. And it was very much completely in tune with that. It was very intense. It was like, this is just a part of the ecosystem. It is just what we do. And the prey I didn't sense pain from it in the same sense. Like it was just, we got it and it surrendered in a sense. So through this technique, you go through important phases in the lives. So you go from that phase. As soon as it went from that, she's like, okay, I want to take you to where you live. And so then it would just transcend into this big nest. And it was a big nest where there was multiple little babies, and I was a mother. So I felt female, even though I didn't identify as female. Like I didn't know what a female was. It's like, it just felt that way. And like I was the mother tending to the babies, and I felt like the males were there kind of standing guard in the area, so to speak. And so we were kind of going about that and how I was feeding them and all that. It felt very bird-like, like regurgitation type of thing. It was just this weird experience. And then I remember looking up in the sky and seeing smoke, and it was like volcano smoke. I remember just like looking up at it and never seeing it before. And I mentioned that. And then I go, the tree's telling me it's okay. And then I went back to caring for my young.
Wow.
So it wasn't like a fear. It was just like notice, got the signal, it's good. And then I'm back down. And it was just this like very animalistic, instinctual state and experience that was just out of this world. And okay, so then we move on from that life. She interpreted the fire as like the end of that life, the way I was describing it in that moment. Because usually in these past life regressions, you take them to their last day and how they died, because there can be some trauma tied to that death that you carry on in the rest of your life or in your later lives, including this one. So I didn't get to like the death of that one because she interpreted that moment as seeing the fire as like I went to sleep and then that was it. And that could have been it. I don't know, but there was no trauma in that sense. It was just like pure instinct. So then after that, after we move on from that life and let that being live and carry on as it needs to, you transition through the cloud back to another life, back in time and space, and then you transcend, go back down. And this time, this was the second two lives I lived in that hypnosis session. I went through the cloud and anchored down, and this one came more immediately, where I looked around and I saw a beautiful valley with a sunrise or sunset and a beautiful lake or pond. And I looked down at my feet and it looked like I was wearing a toga and some sandals, and they were like man's feet. And I could, see my hands, and I was holding a water pitcher, and just kind of felt like a very simple life. And she brought me back to where I lived, which was in this village that was away from the valley that I was standing in. And it was this like cobblestone village, wooden pillars, all connected to each other. Like the buildings were all like kind of one alley, and there was like bungalows that were well maintained and very simple, but very functional. And the village felt very peaceful. Kids were running around laughing, and it was like a village that was very supportive of each other. It just felt like a lot of unity in that village that I was in. So she takes me to my house and where I live. And so the process that you go through is kind of, who are you? What are you? What kind of class are you? What kind of age are you in? Because a lot of times you can't get a direct correlation to where you are at in time, because a lot of these past lives don't have a correlation of time or age or can even read. So it's like you're trying to draw information from somebody in a different way. So she brought me back to where I lived to kind of get an idea of how I lived and what I was eating. And so it brought me to my table in my home, which was like a 1-bedroom cobblestone and wooden framed place lit with candles. So this was obviously back in time sometime. And it felt like pre-religion in a sense. Like it wasn't the structured Christianity or Catholicism type of thing. It was like, it felt before that, where it was more mystical and spiritual. And I had books on the shelf, and I was sitting down and eating a big steak with potatoes. And I told her that the village feeds me. And I was an older man. Like I can interpret that, my skin and everything. It looked like I was an older man. And I said, the village feeds me. And in return, I teach them. And so I was like a teacher of sorts. And then after that, she took me to the last day of my life. And this is where it got really emotional. So she took me to my last day, and I was laying in my bed, and the village was kind of crammed, what seemed like crammed into my small space. So I don't know if I was in my home but I felt the village completely around me. And I am laying there, and I don't know how I described it other than I go, this is my last lesson. And I get emotional because you really feel this.
Yeah.
And the last lesson was to teach them that there's nothing to fear. And like experience that was intense, because like you're going through this death without fear. And to like embody what you taught your whole entire life is powerful and intense, right? So that we ended that life or moved on from that life. So you peel back, just as Hope was talking about, like she was out of body experiencing herself going through that sacrifice. So you didn't feel the pain, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't feel any of this. You just experienced like the emotion and like it was just real. It was absolutely real to me. And same thing with the raptor thing. It was just like, it was so real. So those were my two lives. And I'm not thinking, holy shit, this is crazy. Like, you know, I did this, then I did that. No, it was, you're still hypnotized. I'm still feeling my rapid eye movement. I'm still talking in a very altered state, much more calm and subdued, not speaking loud. And I have the recording, and it's like, I got to really hold it close to make sure I hear it right. And then, so after that, you go through the process of connecting with your subconscious. And it's interesting because as you connect with the subconscious, it's a total different tone than what I was speaking from with these past lives. And it speaks in the third person. So it's like this just involuntary speaking from I don't know, above, whatever you want to describe it, but it's describing Justin, not me, Justin. It's speaking him. And so when she was bringing that into account, she would ask, why did you bring these lives to Justin today? And the message was, it was to show him I'm putting words here, but the duality or the intellect and instinct are what make us whole. So to experience a life of pure instinct and experience a life of intellect in the sense of the mystic sage or whatever he was, to experience those two worlds, those lives, just really showed just a kind of how polarized, you know, how intuition drives intellect and intellect drives intuition or instinct. And those two combined make intuition, in a sense, is a better way to put it. So intellect and instinct create intuition or drive or enhance intuition. That was the message overall. And as we went into further questions and things of that nature, I was going some crazy stories that came about where I was digging into Dolores Cannon's Nostradamus books. And she's got, they're probably like 30 hours of books, audiobooks on Nostradamus. When you break it down, they're pretty heavy reads, but very interesting. And Nostradamus has been tried to be deciphered from all sorts of scholars. And, you know, he had to write in code because he would have been killed for the things that he was saying, because it was so out of line with the Catholic ruling that if he was coming out with these things, claiming that he could see the future or predict the future, that was just something that couldn't be done. So much like a lot of these people from those early ages, medieval times or whatever it may have been, they had to write in code. And so Dolores had these books where you don't intentionally, like what Hope went through and what I went through, you're not going into this. You're certainly hoping for a unique experience and like not a what's called pick and potatoes type life, but 80-90% of the time you're going through a past life that was just kind of the pick and potatoes, what she calls it, where it's like it's a normal life and you kind of go about your day to day and it's nothing too exciting. But these lives were certainly exciting and interesting in many ways. But one of the questions I had reading up on the Nostradamus books was, she was alluding to when she went through the subject who was able to channel Nostradamus, was who was the third Antichrist. So I think they depicted it as the first one was Napoleon, the second one was Hitler, and then there's a third one coming. And it was describing kind of what we were going through with like 9/11 and the war in Afghanistan. And he was kind of describing this area of which it would be taking place and all these things. So it got me interested in what's going on in today's world. You know, what would that be? And what is that? And one of my questions was, who's the third Antichrist? And I was really interested in that. And so what came through in the subconscious was Israel. It was a consciousness in a sense. I was like, that was interesting. So I pulled that out as like just an interesting tidbit. It'll be polarizing to some people and interesting to others. Take it what you will, but it was something that stood out to me with what's going on with Epstein and possibly being an agent with Israel and all sorts of things going on in today's world, that there's a lot going on that I find interesting, and history will be able to tell that in the future. I can't really say how real that is or how real that was, but that to me came out as something very interesting out of the whole hypnosis session too, is being able to draw from information that, as I look into it more and more, I can't help but see that there's some correlations and connections there. And it's one of those things that you just kind of take notice and see what's going on around you. And these practices with hypnosis allow you to get just kind of a little bit more instinctual, intuitive, more self-aware. And this is all about what we're doing with Remember You, is just becoming more self-aware, remembering who you are in the most foundational level, which is a spirit. And we signed up for this game to find out, to remember, where we came from and who we truly are in the most powerful sense. So to tap into these things through subconscious was really powerful. You take those experiences and they carry on to the rest of your days ongoing from that point on. The other one that I asked about was, I had some issues going on with my feet, where my big toes were like extremely limited in range of motion. And the big toe range of motion is a big issue with, just overall functioning. If your gait is off, if the way you walk is off, then it throws a lot of other things off. So I did another past life regression. This was with another practitioner after this. And this was a cool experience where I actually, same process went down. And this time around, I came down and I was on the beach, and I was wearing like a robe of sorts. And so I appeared and felt to be like, it was very thin feet, and I felt it was like a woman. So I was like, okay, now I'm in a woman, in the form of a woman. And I was in this like beautiful palace in what seemed like India or Egypt or something to that tune. It was just a very elegant, beautiful place. And we flash forward to an important day in my life, and I was in this wedding, and I was being married to this guy it was an arranged wedding. And this was not ancient, but this was kind of like times where there was no motors, horse and buggy type stuff. And I remember just kind of sitting there, like, it felt like a Disney movie. I was just this princess, like just kind of sitting here, not entertained by any of this. Everybody was celebrating around me. He was excited, but I just didn't want anything to do with this. Like, it was just, I was being forced into this. And so we fast forward to another important date, and I was organizing somebody to take me from the palace and take me into the bungalows or like the outskirts of the city to escape this marriage and to escape this life. And so, I mean, I was clearly like, there was gold rimmed everything and beautiful granite pillars, and it was a magnificent place. So I was royalty of some sort, is the way I interpreted it. And so I was trying to get out of there. And so I arranged for somebody to take me out and basically just leave without letting anybody know. And I remember leaving and then falling in love with this guy. I don't know if I forget if I knew him from before, but he lived on like a shack on the beach. And like, that was my true love in a sense. And so it was like this whole like Disney movie type of experience, so to speak. And we had a kid and we had a family and all this stuff. It was crazy.
Were your toes still part of this, that you couldn't walk right?
No. Had nothing to do with that.
Different hypnosis.
Yeah, this is a different hypnosis session.
Oh, okay.
I'll close up on the toes and the reason why. So it was like, you're moving in the wrong direction in certain ways. And so I had to like unpackage that. And it was like holding on to things that I shouldn't have been holding on to, so the feet are really aligned with like what direction you're walking in. And if you're experiencing some type of pain in the feet, then it's usually an indicator or a sign that you're moving in the wrong direction in some way, shape, or form.
And so that's what's cool about this hypnosis stuff, is you can have quantum leaps like they seem to be having. Like, if you really pay attention, like he's being told to follow his instincts and not have fear, right?
Yes.
And so just like Hope had her quantum leap, he could be having his.
Exactly.
Right.
Well,
That's pretty cool.
and even what's interesting is I wanted to ask, so you obviously have gone through this in a much deeper and like one-on-one way
Let me finish up the last life, and then we'll get into this real quick, because I just want to tie this up. So after I was living in this shack, from princess in the palace to living in this shack, so money wasn't, material things weren't a matter for me. It was like love is what mattered. I got word that my dad was dying, so I went back to the palace, whatever it was, 20 years later, and my dad was on his deathbed, and I was there, and my husband with the arranged marriage was there, and my mom was there, and there was no like, where have you been type of thing. So I'm assuming they knew or whatever. But I remember my mom like really appreciating what I did, because I did something that she didn't do, which was follow my heart. And that was the message. That was the message of that life. Like, follow your heart, regardless of what society puts on you, follow your heart. And that was like one of the things that really mattered, that I felt very powerful. And then it influenced my relationships and all that sort of stuff too. So that was the wrapping up of that one.
And it's interesting. It's like these sessions help you find out what the right message is for you. And in this life, I think that we're evolving to a place where we have gifts. Like, I get the goosebumps a lot. And when I get that, I know like, okay, I'm on the right track, or this resonates with me or whatever. But for a long time, I was taught to push that down. And so I felt like something was wrong with me when I was getting these like energy vibes or these goosebumps, or like I could see things, and I was like, there's definitely something wrong with me. But it's like when you go through these things, you're healing, like you've healed, and now you're sharing this with other people. And these are like core beliefs that a lot of us are pushing forward with, right? Things like we are just covered with fear mongering everywhere that you go. Everything that you see is fear. A lot of times we're taught to fear, that you're raised in fear, all these things. So it's like having these messages are so important to remember that, whether or not you believe in this past life thing or not, most likely this life is not the last one that you're living. There's going to be another thing you're going to continue to live and feel and be part of this universe. And so remembering that as you're going through your life's really important, so that you can follow your path. You do the right things. You keep yourself whole by resting, relaxing, honoring your body, so that it's the vessel that you can experience this realm through. It's really cool what you guys have, the lessons you've learned and what you shared today.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say thank you. And to piggyback off what you were saying about goosebumps, I learned in my breathwork training, kind of actually outside of like, I do believe that that's like energetic and like there's different things, but there is this like, we as a society are so disconnected from our bodies. So because of all the things and distractions in our mind, and like, it's pulling us away from ourselves. And our body is like an animal, and it feels and knows things before your mind actually knows.
Right. Yes. And so that's the point.
Yeah, that's exactly why the whole time he was saying that, I was just like, yes.
Yeah.
It was,
and so it's like it's almost like reconnect with your animal instincts, because we have those. It's part of us, and
we just suppress them.
Yes,
people that are not
go out and have sex with. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God!
Procreate.
All I was gonna say, and then call her for your hypno baby.
Don't listen to her.
Oh my God!
That's induced.
Help give the baby a really like peaceful entrance into the world.
I wish you would have hypnotized me when I came here. It's been a wild journey. But all that I was going to add to close that thought out was just that you'll hear me often say, like from hanging out or working or whatever, I was just like, oh, I wonder let me see how my body feels about that. And it's like literally like someone will walk into a room, or like I'll have a conversation, and like, it's not like there's no judgment. It's just like awareness. So I don't, if I get goosebumps, I'm not saying this is the truth, or this is like this. It's like, oh, there's something that I'm supposed to pay attention to here.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like if I have a conversation, I notice my body kind of naturally like constricts a little. I don't mean that person's bad, or like this, there's something there that like, you know, I'm supposed to just like take a second and come back and reflect on that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't actually do this right now because my schedule's too busy. That's all it is. It's not this person's a bad person. It's just like, no, that's not in alignment with your values, whatever it is. But you'll find that it's like a muscle. Like you're getting back to using that as your guide, and then you start making these better, more aligned decisions.
Yes.
And wasting less time.
Yeah, I mean,
great.
and it's just like little things too, right?
Totally.
Like yesterday I had a really busy day and I was like, okay, I've got a ton to do. And it took a lot for me to ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like,
Right. It was
okay,
good
I have to ask for some help because I'm going to not be able to do this. And so it's like it's learning.
Yeah.
They're learning.
Well, and the thing that's interesting too, I'll close my little story out too, is that I was actually just looking while he was talking about like what each of these things mean. And the thing that I found interesting about the Egyptian times one specifically was that I didn't know this, but it's like very well known in Egyptian, like ancient Egyptian times, that the heart was viewed as the seat of the soul. Mm-hmm. And that when you die, it was weighed against this feather of Ma'at. So it's like if your heart was like lighter than it or like lighter than it, then you would go to heaven. And then if it was heavier than it, then you would be like, you know, banned or something along those lines, which I just thought was super interesting. But the big takeaway, which comes back to your goosebumps, is as I'm like reading through this, I'm like putting it into chat and just seeing like, you know, what could the interpretations be? One of them was that is initiation rite, so that it could be a soul memory of being initiated into this like priestesshood of Ra, where the sacrifice of your heart was symbolic of giving up your ego to channel like spiritual gifts.
Oh, interesting.
Which I thought was super interesting.
That gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
But that to me is, and then this also, the last one that gave me goosebumps was that it was actually potentially like a karmic contract. So that you may still be carrying an oath of sacrifice in agreement that your happiness or freedom must be traded for spiritual power or service. And that when I was reading that's the one that gave me goosebumps. Because in my mind, I think unintentionally, but I've noticed this pattern of thinking in a very binary, you know, like, or black and white way, where it's like, okay, like, this is like what I want, because spirituality is so important to me, hypnosis and like using these things to help people. Like, this is my purpose.
Yeah.
But I think because of that working and like, you know, it's like, I think I need to give up every single thing to like do this purpose, when in reality, it's like you can integrate.
Yeah.
You know, and so I just like interesting, just reading the goosebumps made me stop at that one. I just thought it was kind of
And
interesting.
notice it. Right?
Yeah, notice it. It's like, oh, what is that?
Yeah, and learn with it. So
Totally. All right, Justin. Well, how do you want to close out today?
I would like to just say these stories that we're sharing here, excitement comes from having an open mind. And one of the triggers that I find worth exploring is when you feel like we're just having a conversation here where it was, if you find yourself disagreeing with something someone is saying, there's an opportunity for you to go, what would it look like if I actually like saw their point of view, and just open yourself up to that. And I think we need to do that in life and everybody around us. But these things in particular, I think if you've been watching or listening to this point in time, you're digging into what is being put down here. But it's an invitation to just open your mind to something that you may have not been exposed to. And that really creates exciting life. The more open you are to the possibilities of things that can't be explained, but can be experienced using love, as Christina was explaining, like science can't identify love other than now quantum is going into it, right? Where you can track it vibrationally, but these are things that you have to experience. It doesn't matter if you attach a number or frequency to love, you got to experience it. And we all have. And that's an example of what we're talking about here, is experiencing that.
And I think, that emotion. I'm going to interrupt you with the love thing too. It's feeling it, not by giving it to somebody else, because that can drain you, right? But it's feeling the love within you because it's in you. and really harnessing that feeling so that you can show up every day with that love in your heart and love reflection off to other people. And it really changes your life when you can do that.
Well, and that's the hard part for some people because they first have to love themselves, and most people judge themselves.
Yes.
So it's hard to love themselves first. So
Every day,
work on that.
Every day, wake up and say, "I am love. I am love."
Outside of that, I would love for this to be our next group podcast, and maybe we can even just lead off with some ideas. But what actually, what it means to have self-love? What does that even mean? Some people don't even, what does that mean?
No.
What does that look like?
It's hard. It's a hard thing to do, but it's something that you have to every day sit with and realize that. I'll bring back the Michael Singer book with the roommate in your head, right? Turn the roommate off. There's a million thoughts going through, and realize that if you sit still and turn everything else off, you have love within you. That's what you're made of. And stop downgrading yourself, your abilities, anything like that.
Quieting the noise to connect with that.
Yeah.
That inner knowing.
Mm-hmm.
But
I have a parting thought on my end. It is take time to be alone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spend time to be alone with yourself. Hypnosis is a great tool. Health is a great vehicle. Anything that you can do where it doesn't require anybody else other than yourself to go inward. You can have a guide, you can have a coach, you can have a vehicle that helps guide you through the process. We're reading a book that makes you think, like a Michael Singer book, Untethered Soul. Those are, the alone time is the greatest opportunity for you to be able to find yourself and get more in touch with that self-love.
Okay, so to know thyself and then actually appreciate yourself and like who you are.
Yeah.
And if you can't sit alone and be with your thoughts, take some mushrooms.
Psilocybin,
relax a little.
Psilocybin's your friend.
Okay, but
Rewire your neurons.
last one with Michelle. What does self-love look like for you?
Resting, what we talked about earlier. So I took the time to rest when I was tired yesterday, and I had a conversation with Justin on Monday morning. So I rested after that, but because I was saying yes to things when I didn't want to, and so I have to learn to say no and be okay with it and be comfortable and not feel bad about it, have that be okay. I think that's self-love. It's taking the time to rest, when you're tired.
Yeah. And it's a journey every day.
Yeah.
And don't make sure that you give yourself grace and know that you're not going to do it perfectly every time.
Right.
I absolutely agree with all of that. And I wanted to say my recent, actually, as I was driving here, because I love the topic of self-love. It's so vast. What does this mean? Really, we should do a whole episode. But it came to me that for me, self-love is actually deep, unconditional self-acceptance.
Yes.
So it's
true.
There's so many things right now that I'm I'm not where I want to be. I'm not this and that. But it's look at how far you've come.
Yeah.
Feeling true gratitude and feeling it doesn't matter. I'm with me until the end.
Well, and for me, it's I have been through so many growing things,
Yeah.
but that's exactly what it is. And for me, it's my body image forever and ever. I've always been I hate my,
That's specifically
my body.
what I was thinking.
I think I'm so ugly, all these things. And so for me, it's now I look in the mirror and every day I'm I love my body. I love myself. Even if I don't like exactly what's going on, it's a learning thing for me that I have to do every day.
Love it.
And I'm more and more feeling better and better about myself. And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And we all have these things that we have to work on. And it's an ongoing journey. And the more that we can support each other, the better everybody's life's going to be. I know Trey is over here being really quiet. Can I put you on the spot and you tell us as a young person what you think self-love is?
Give it to us, Trey. Come on.
I have a headache.
And what would you do for that as self-loving?
You'll rest.
There you
There you go.
Did we ask Justin?
No, Justin, what's yours?
I would say alone time.
Yeah.
Spending time alone where there's no influence outside of yourself. And like I said, there's so many ways to do that. It's an endless journey. For one day for me, it's hypnosis. Another day, it's strength training. I definitely have my modalities. It's eating consciously. spending time, praying in front of my food, eating my food, connecting with people, but at the same time, spending time by myself, going for walks, tuning in to my inner thoughts and feelings, realizing who I'm judging. If I'm judging myself or if I'm pointing the finger at somebody else, that's a trigger for me to look at my limitations. And usually when I'm saying somebody's troubled, I'm troubled in that way, in a other side of the coin type of way. And I just need to look at and work on myself. And so when I gain more clarity and understanding with myself, my triggers and my likes, my dislikes, or my preferences and things that I don't prefer, you just get more in tune with yourself and you get more peaceful and good regardless of circumstances. You're just in a good place. So alone time for me, spending time alone, allows me to center myself to then be with others, but still be authentically me.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think that does it for us today. Thank you, audience and listeners, for tuning in to Remember You. We appreciate having you. Welcome home and remember you.